A simple task gets assigned. Days later, it's still just being discussed. Weeks later, it's being rewritten for the third time. Now, this cycle isn't usually a sign of poor performers. It's often the predictable outcome of the organizational system itself.
So, let's consider a really minor update to a website feature. The work itself is pretty straightforward, just a small adjustment to some code and text.
In a small organization, this kind of task is direct. An engineer can just plan the change and then implement it. The path from the initial idea to the final execution is really short.
But if you place that exact same task inside a larger organization, the timeline expands. What was a simple execution now requires input from multiple departments, and it has to pass through several layers of oversight. As an organization gets bigger, that direct plan and execute workflow gets replaced by something a lot more complex. New stages are added for review, for approval, and for handoffs between different teams. And each one of these new steps creates an opportunity for delays and for misinterpretation.
This friction isn't just an accident. It comes from how information flows through the structure of the organization. And the problem really starts with how information travels vertically, up the chain.
You see, in a hierarchy, any project updates have to travel up the chain of command, from the people doing the work all the way to senior leaders.
So a status report might travel from a team member to their manager and then on to a director. This structure is actually designed to filter out unnecessary details and summarize progress at each level.
But the message tends to distort as it moves up. Because supervisors are the ones who evaluate performance, there's this built-in pressure to report positive news. And as a result, information is consistently filtered to sound more favorable at each step.
So let's look at an example. At the lowest level, a team member spots a specific technical risk that could cause a delay. The report is factual, it's direct.
Now, when this report reaches the manager, the language often softens. To show that they have things under control, the manager might reframe that specific risk as just a minor challenge that's already being handled. By the time the update gets to a director, pretty much all the nuance is gone. The message gets simplified to its most positive form. The project is on track. The original risk has been completely erased from the picture.
Leadership then makes decisions based on this inaccurate, overly optimistic view. And when the reality of the situation on the ground inevitably comes to light, the original plan is revealed to be unworkable. This forces the project to be rewritten.
And these kinds of distortions don't just happen vertically. They also occur when information moves horizontally, like inside the meetings that are supposed to create alignment and consensus.
So imagine a meeting where a new project plan is being presented. The whole point is for the group to agree on the plan and approve the work to move forward.
In this meeting, one participant privately identifies what they see as a significant flaw. They have some serious reservations, but they look around the room and it seems like everyone else is in agreement.
Not wanting to seem uncooperative or difficult, the individual keeps their concerns to themselves. Instead, they publicly agree with the plan, assuming that their private doubts aren't shared by anyone else.
But here's the issue. Multiple people in the room might be having the exact same private thoughts. When everyone publicly agrees based on a false sense of what the group wants, the team ends up committing to a flawed plan. Those unstated flaws don't just go away. They surface later as rework.
So it's not just about how information flows. The very blueprint of the organization itself ends up dictating the shape of the work it produces.
Organizations manage complexity by dividing labor into specialized teams. You might have one for the user interface, another one for the database, and a third for the billing systems. And as you'd expect, the work itself is then broken down into components that align perfectly with these specialized teams. Each team becomes responsible for just one piece of the larger project.
The final output, the product itself, will almost inevitably mirror the communication structure of the organization that built it. The boundaries that exist between teams become the seams within the product. So if communication between two departments is inefficient, the integration between their two parts will likely be fragile.
Each of these boundaries between teams creates what's called a handoff. And at every single handoff, context gets translated and can easily get lost. The more handoffs a project needs, the more opportunities there are for errors to be introduced, with each one leading to more rework down the line.
These patterns, the rework, the delays, the miscommunication, they aren't really signs of a broken system. In many ways, they are the logical and predictable results of a very intentional design.
You see, a large organization's structure isn't really designed for speed. It's designed to manage complexity and ensure predictability at a massive scale. Rework is simply the friction that system produces when it prioritizes stability over agility.